to talk a little bit with you about how important our thoughts are. And we're going to do a little activity, and then I'm going to have you do a little homework assignment related to interrupting our automatic thoughts so that we can create thoughts that are more helpful and effective and allow us and motivate us to reach our goals. Does that sound okay to you? Is that something you feel open to talking about today?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So to get started, I want to show you this gorgeous little diagram that I made for you. Here it is. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this cycle, how our thoughts can impact how we feel or our emotions, and that our emotions can impact our behaviors. But that the cycle goes the other way too, that our behaviors can impact the way we feel, they can impact the way we think, etc. Okay? But for this activity and for the purpose of our time together today, we're specifically going to focus on what it's like to interrupt our thoughts and create thoughts that are more productive. Okay? So I want you to first identify a thought that you had this week that wasn't particularly helpful for you. Something that maybe was negative or didn't make you feel so good.
Mm, Probably that like I should be doing more. Like I should be being more productive.
I should be doing more. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, this is a thought that you have pretty frequently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember last time we talked, you were talking a little bit about feeling overwhelmed, and yet you still feel like there's things on your plate that you need to get done.
Yeah.
That's rough. I'm wondering when you have the thought, I should be doing more, what are some of the emotions that that brings up for you?
Um, Probably I feel pretty guilty.
Mm.
Um, Maybe angry or just disappointed.
Okay, guilty. Yeah, I remember you also mentioning when we talked last time that guilt wasn't necessarily something you thought of before, but when we talked about it, you were like, oh my gosh, yes, like I feel guilt all the time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Like I'll literally take a nap and then I wake up and I'm like, I shouldn't have been taking a nap. I should have been doing homework or something like that.
yeah, okay. So I have guilty, angry, and disappointed. So I'm wondering when you feel this way, when you feel angry or guilty or disappointed or all of them, how do you act? Like, what are some behaviors that you engage in or that you don't engage in because you're feeling these things?
Um, I'm probably not as patient with my sister as I should be.
Okay.
And I can struggle with like taking care of myself, like washing my face or like getting ready for the day.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So on my board, I'm going to write down less patient, that you have a hard time with your regular activities, like your day-to-day activities. We call those ADLs. So I'm going to write down that you have a hard time with ADLs. Is there anything else?
Um, at school, like maybe I'm not very engaged. Like I'm not really like listening if I'm there and I'm feeling that way.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Okay, thanks so much for doing that. I know that sometimes when we talk about these things, it can bring up difficult emotions. And sometimes it's just easier to avoid it so we don't have to deal with these.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your ability to kind of dive in there and go there with me and think about how you're feeling in these situations and how you're acting. Thanks for doing that. Okay, so here's our beautiful cycle. Um, And I want to talk a little bit about how this all works, okay? So we have this thought that I should be doing more. You said that it makes you feel guilty, angry, and disappointed. And then you have these behaviors where you're less patient, you don't want to do your day to day activities, maybe you're not engaged at school. I'm wondering when you act this way, when these are your behaviors, what kinds of thoughts you have afterwards.
Um, Probably that I'm not good and like I'm just not being as good as I should be.
Okay, I'm not good. What kinds of emotions do you think the thought I'm not good is going to bring up?
Probably sad.
Probably some of these again, right?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm not good and feel terrible. and then maybe a little bit
Yeah,
angry, and then you're disappointed in yourself. And then how are you going to act? Less
the
patient
same
and
way.
not going to do your activities. Okay, so I think you get the point that our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors feed off of each other, and we can get stuck in these negative cycles. And then lots of times the reason we get stuck is because our thoughts are so automatic. We don't necessarily recognize what's going on in our own head and don't always clearly identify how our thoughts are actually making us suffer. So, to do a little experiment, I want to talk about how this might be different if you had a different thought. So, can you think of an example of a positive thought you might have?
Mm, I am a good student.
Okay. And how would that make you feel?
Probably successful
Okay.
and motivated
Okay.
and happy.
And then how would you behave if you felt successful and motivated and happy?
Probably be a better student. Probably go to
Mhm.
class more and make more time for homework and things like that.
Okay, awesome. So when we have a positive thought, we have positive emotions and positive behaviors, or, helpful or effective behaviors. Okay, awesome. So there's lots of ways that we can kind of interrupt this cycle to try to make changes in our lives. But for today, like I mentioned, we're just focusing on our thoughts. So I want to show you a little activity that I'd like you to complete 2 times this week, okay? Okay. This is what we call a thought record. It's a tool that we use to try to recognize and identify our thoughts, and also to realize when they're not serving us, when they're unhelpful, when they might be extreme, when they might not be based in evidence. Um, and then we try to create a more balanced or an alternative thought that will serve us better, that will motivate us to do the things that we want to do. Okay. So, in order to complete this thought record, and let me know if you have any questions as we go through it, but
Okay.
throughout the week, 2 times, you're going to identify a situation when some really strong emotions or thoughts came up for you, especially something that might have been triggering or something that it's particularly self-critical. You're going to talk about who you were with and what you were doing and when it was. And this is just totally factual. Just tell me like the who, what, when, where. Then you're going to write down your moods. How did you feel? And then you're going to rank them based off of their intensity. Then you're going to talk about what are some of the thoughts that automatically came into your mind when you were struck by those moods in that situation. After that, you're going to write down all the evidence that supports those thoughts. And I also want to make a note. I know last time you said that you like to draw. If you want to draw your thoughts, or if those thoughts come to you as images, feel free to draw those as well.
Okay.
Then all the evidence that supports that thought. And then this is the hardest part, the evidence that does not support the thought. What evidence exists that the thought that you were thinking might not have been factual? And then you're going to write an alternative or more balanced thought. Finally, you're going to rate your moods and see how they might have changed or how they stayed the same after completing this exercise. Okay.
Okay. Seems
Okay.
easy enough.
Okay. So, do you have any questions about this?
No, if I like draw them down, and can I just like write which one it correlates with and then show them to you?
Totally, totally. And the last thing I just want to mention to you is that our purpose here is to recognize that um, our thoughts give us information, but they're not always necessarily true. Sometimes our thoughts are like, if I put on like some goofy like clown glasses that had blue glass in them, I would see the world around me as blue. But that might not necessarily be true, right? So, like, the curtains are clearly not blue, but I would see them that way. And when I took off my glasses, I might be surprised, like, oh my gosh, wait, I had that totally wrong. And so, our hope here is that by being able to change our thoughts to make them maybe a little bit more balanced than our natural brain tends to be, because our brain often works in extremes, if we're able to be a little bit more balanced, we might be able to see the world in a more motivating way. I'm hoping that some of the thoughts that you expressed to me last time, like I'm a failure, or I'm not worthy, or I'm, not good, or I'm gonna fail. I'm hoping that we can take off that lens and put on a new lens that's a little bit more balanced and a little bit more helpful. Um, and put on a lens that motivates you to be able to reach your goals. Do you have any
Thank you.
questions about that?
No, that seems, I mean, that makes a lot of sense with the glasses.
Okay, awesome.